y'all, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome again to If It Looks Like I'm Sweating Profusely, it's because I am. Maybe it's a healthy dewy glow, or maybe it's perspiration. My body, for some reason, wants to act like it is all kinds of menopausal up in here, and we ain't about that life. But today we are going to be simply doing another installment in a series that I've already done several videos on, and that is going to be talking about makeup that I wanted but didn't buy for one reason or another. As y'all know, your girl is working very, very hard to be a better, more informed consumer. 2021, we're focusing on buying less. So it's interesting to me to sometimes kind of go back and look at that makeup that initially like really sparked my interest, and then sort of go in and be like, well, why didn't I go in and buy it? Besides, I shouldn't be buying more makeup and I don't have the money. Because quite frankly, there's so much makeup being released at this point that there's bound to be those things that I look at and I'm like, yeah, if I had an endless amount of money to burn, if I didn't already have 1,000 blushes, 1,000 highlighters, 1,000 eyeshadow palettes, yeah, I'd probably buy this. So we're just gonna go on down and do this list. I will leave linked down below other iterations of this video that I've done, because we have definitely talked about a large amount of makeup that I was like, oh, what's up, you cute. And then I came to my senses shortly thereafter, or maybe not so shortly thereafter, and was like, all right, yeah, you cute, but you not cute enough. And then there are those things that are still really stinking beautiful, gorgeous, that if I had the money to burn, I most definitely would purchase these things. But for consumeristic critic Soraya of 2021, this stuff gotta be left at the store. And we're gonna start out with my favorite kind of something, and that is actually two highlighters that came out mid to the tail end of 2020, I think. And it's actually kind of funny because I got a $50 Sephora gift card from my mother-in-law for Christmas that I've been absolutely hoarding for, like, say, an eyeshadow palette release that I want to review. But I will not lie to you and say that a part of me was tempted to use said gift card on getting one of these highlighters. And those are, respectively, the Natasha Denona Nude Glow Highlighter, as well as the Anastasia Beverly Hills, I believe, Iced Out highlighter. It's that highlighter that they made that was in the same kind of compact formation as the Resi one. It looked like really stark and white and silver. And then I saw swatches and I saw people using it. It was all kinds of nice, beautiful, white, shifty, champagne-y gold. I mean, y'all know your girl loves highlighter. Y'all know that your girl loves the highlighter formula of those ones from Natasha Denona. Now, it is a limited edition job from Natasha, so I'm not entirely sure how that would affect the quality. I have seen a lot of people really liking it. It's got a good level of stars on Sephora. I feel like it's a highlighter that has a fair amount of what going for it, and I just looked at it and I was like, I would really like to have that. And same with the Anastasia ones. It was just like, you are so beautiful. But when you sit there and you think about it, especially for someone who's really trying hard not to purchase those unnecessary frills, it's like, I think the Natasha Denona one is 38 and I think the ABH one is like 34. I mean, the rational part of me realizes that that is a lot of money for a single pan of highlighter when I have over 200 single pan highlighters. Your girl is not lacking in the glow department. I probably have enough highlighter to put on my cheekbones until I die. And as such, I was able to look at these relatively subjectively and be like, yeah, they're beautiful. I would probably enjoy using them, but when you're being realistic, it's just one of those things that I can't pull the trigger on. Like $38, $34, like that is a lot of money for something that I really don't need. I mean, I don't need any new makeup. But there are those things that I still want to review, and as I'm going through my channel and kind of analyzing my content and moving forward into the year, it just isn't cost effective to be buying a lot of single, especially high-end single highlighters and blushes, because I'm not making back in YouTube ad revenue what it would cost to buy these things. Like, I'm not making back in ad revenue what it costs for me to buy a palette to review, so let alone a highlighter. So not gonna deny, I really wanted these. They're still really stinking pretty. If I was rich, if I was a part of the 1%, I would have these, but I'm not, so I don't. All right. Now let's talk about some palettes going on. I've got a couple little things going on here. These are things that just sort of came out that I feel wouldn't be enough for review or wouldn't be enough, you know, like I said, if I had unlimited money, yeah, I would love to purchase these and have them in my collection, but like I keep saying, I don't. We've got the Huda Beauty pastel palettes. Now, I must admit, my decision not to purchase these was a little bit more than just, you know, buying all of them would end up being like close to $100. So aside from that fact, looking at these palettes, you know, Huda Beauty to me is such a hit and miss brand when it comes to their collections and their eyeshadow palettes and just things that they release on a whole. Like, I love my Desert Dusk. I love my Rose Gold Remastered. I love my new nudes. I love my neon palettes. I love my colorful little mini palettes. And so when I went in on like all these little whatever palettes, y'all know I had the nude ones. They didn't really do it for me. I tried the haze ones. Those ones didn't really do it for me. So on that initial looking at these, I was like, oh, it's in that cute little 9-pan whatever format that I know and enjoy. And it's a bunch of really pretty pastels that in reality, had I purchased them, wouldn't really give a lot of depth and ingenuity to my collection. I don't really skew pastel in my aesthetic or in my looks typically. If I am, I'm using it as like a light first starting shade. And so initially I saw these and I was drawn to like the pink and the purple and the green. But then looking at it in a more subjective fashion, it wasn't anything that was gonna bring me, like, even if I got a review out of it, definitely wouldn't have made my money back on that shiz. It was just something that really kind of intrigued me at first. And then waiting, which is something that I've learned to do now, and seeing people's reviews, they weren't very pigmented, they were patchy, you know, and when you've got a shade that is so light as pastels, it really behooves you to have a formula that's pigmented and has a lot of staying power because you're already dealing with something that's very faint, subtle, sort of more ethereal. And I remember looking at those swatches and being like, I think you went over those a couple different times. Like, as much as I was drawn towards the aesthetic, as much as I was interested in wanting to try something new, it just wasn't enough for me to go beyond, oh, I'm slightly interested in that, I kind of want it, and actually purchase it. Partly because after the initial whatever, the color stories weren't that amazing for being pastel. They didn't have a lot of gradation. They weren't very interesting. They weren't very unique. They were just kind of pasty attempts at creating a good pastel themed palette. And you also have the fact that I have been burned multiple times on her 9-pan palettes that I was just like, it's okay, I can let this one go. Then a palette that I wanted, and I still kind of do want, it's one of those things that, like, if I got some mystical, magical money that I could do whatever I wanted with, I would probably purchase this. And that is the Black Moon Cosmetics Urban Myth palette. Let me all tell you, one of y'all suggested me to get like the liquid lipstick from them that's called Cider. And I remember Black Moon Cosmetics was being sold at Ulta. Guess what's not sold at Ulta anymore? Not entirely sure if they weren't getting enough like revenue from Black Moon Cosmetics because they are more of an alternative brand. Maybe a lot of people didn't know that they were being sold at Ulta. But I was very sad that the time I actually decided to buy the liquid lipstick because I had points, Black Moon wasn't there anymore. more. This palette was pretty simple in its design and color story, but that's kind of what drew me to it. It was this collection of jewel toned mattes and then correlating shimmers. It was a simplistic layout, but I was really drawn to it. I love Black Moon Cosmetics, their aesthetic. I feel like they're a good aesthetic alternative at the time to Kat Von D before she left Kat Von D and now it's KVD. And so many of y'all have actually explained the acronym to me and I just forget every single time. So I apologize for that. But this palette just looked so pretty. I know Beauty Bean did a couple different videos on it and there are a couple other smaller YouTubers that focus on indie makeup that I know and I watch and I love and I was like, oh, they like it. I want it. Like it looked so pretty and so good and the aesthetic was there and everything was there. And I just couldn't justify bringing that kind of a palette into my current collection because it really isn't anything that I don't already have in other palettes. Like I don't have one with just all the jewel tone shades and the correlating shimmers. But if I look at my collection, I'm sure I could find each of those jewel tone mattes. I'm sure I could find each of those shimmers. You know, it was a case in point of I really didn't need it. It wasn't going to enhance the collection that I already have. Okay. Now let's talk about one that might be a little bit controversial just because it's me admitting sort of something that I wanted. I have talked mad shiz about this palette, but there was a small part of me that was like, I want it. I want to believe that this is going to be the next big thing. I want to believe that this is the palette that is going to take us in a new, wonderful direction for this particular brand. And that is the Urban Decay Ultraviolet palette. You all know I hated this palette. I hated it so much and I wanted it. Like I saw that little bit of purples and I was like, I was rooting for Urban Decay for this to be some kind of something that would kind of get them back on track, back to their roots, back to being beauty with an edge, which apparently isn't even their tagline anymore. So it was a desire that had like the best of intentions, but was sort of not really based from a realistic point of view, because if you think about that little section of purples compared to all the purple themed palettes I already own. I mean, I've got more purple in my Lilac You a Lot and my It's My Pleasure palettes than I would ever get from that little section from the Ultraviolet palette. Let alone the fact that the Ultraviolet palette was kind of half purple, half nude with like a little shimmery, shiny, silvery blue. Like it was more, I want to get this because I hope that it represents a sort of return to normalcy for this brand, because I feel that Urban Decay has kind of been, you know, wavering just a little bit. They've definitely come a far way from when I came into the beauty community. They are not the same brand that thought up the Vice palettes. They are not the same company that came up with the Electric palette. We are under new management, and the management isn't really holding true to what we used to be. Like I always say in these sort of scenarios, I am not a makeup manager. I am not a company owner. I don't have the facts. I don't have the sheets telling me, you know, sale quotas and everything like that, and what makes a company change and adapt and shift to the environment it's around. But a lot of the things that Urban Decay had been releasing just didn't seem to be very revolutionary. I mean, if we're talking about evolution, we're definitely going down the food chain, not up. And so as much as I bashed and I trashed on this palette, a couple of y'all said the quality was really good, you really enjoyed it. There was just that part of me, that little young Urban Decay loving Soraya that was like, I want a purple palette from Urban Decay, even though this wasn't really a purple palette. It was like a neutral Urban Decay. It's like they had some leftover singles from the other Naked palettes that they were, that's another thing. It was a Naked, Ultraviolet, like what? Who is coming up with these themes and ideas and then letting them actually happen? I mean, I remember I watched that one whole thing and it was like, you know, introducing 12 new neutrals. And I was like, purple as a neutral, okay, I can get down. It just felt sort of out of place. And I just, like I said, I hated it so much. But a part of me was like, there's something inside of me that feels it needs to be fulfilled by purchasing that. I'm really glad I didn't, because that palette would be the most redundant of all redundancies. But for a while there, I was like, you cute. You have like all of the hope and dreams of young Soraya nestled within you. Another palette that I kind of really wanted, but have also trashed on. Maybe that's my thing. The harder I trash something, the more I want it. But KVD, Kendo Vegan, Death Star, Mandalorian, The Child Beauty, and that stupid vegan pigments palette that they came out for holiday, which I still stand by my statement that what that palette is some sort of holiday something that Kat had in the works. And then after she left, they still had the units and the production thing. So they're like, all right, let's slap a little bit different branding on it and then just send it out. In a way, this palette really was sort of, I feel, an empty shell of what the brand used to be. But even that being said, there's a part of me that was like, I want it to be good. I want to love this. I want KVD to thrive. I want them to come out with good products. I want them to establish their own solid aesthetic. I need them to stop selling things in old KVD packaging, cut that umbilical cord, and do their own thing. We've talked about this multiple times already. The palette went on sale. That was definitely a case of, I had it in a roasting the sale section. It also could have qualified for being in a don't buy it just because it's on sale video. Lacey tweeted out, she was like, it's on sale and it's actually a really good palette. And I'm like, I really trust her opinion when it comes to eyeshadow and makeup on a whole. And I almost went in, and then I pulled myself back and I said, Soraya, it's limited edition. The majority of it is shimmers, and you're buying it because you want it to be, in your mind, you want it to be something better than it actually is. You know, I'm thankful that I was able to look at it more critically, but I was just like, it could have been something so wonderful. I feel like KVD is they're just treading water at this point. They're just kind of amidst the beauty community. You know, they haven't really super established themselves as a contender within the community and within all the other brands that are dropped in shizz left and right. I do appreciate the fact that they're not dropping shizz left and right, probably because they can't figure out what to do with themselves. But for a moment there, it could have been a little bit of weakness within me. Probably the main thing that kept me back was that limited edition thing. You all know that I'm trying very hard to break myself of that whole, well, it's limited edition, I need it. Nowadays, Soraya is more like, oh, it's limited edition. That's a sign that I don't need it. I would rather invest my time and my money into permanent products. All right, let's talk about some stupid things. Like, these are things where I'm like, I want it because I'm a sad, pathetic, makeup-loving magpie. And other than that, there's really absolutely no reason to have it. First of which being the Natasha Denona single blush. I believe this was a palette, a blush in those big palettes, which I own. Obviously, that'll be important later in this discussion. And I think it was included in one of her like little 4-pan face palettes. So if I had it in the big one, and then I had it in one of the little ones, and then it was released as a single, and I was like, oh, that's hot. And I was like, yeah, that's hot, and that's great, but it's a single. Not only is it a single, it's something you already own. But there was just something about it. Y'all know I get a lot of my jollies on with single face products. I love collecting compacts that I don't have space for. And it just looks so pretty and gleaming. And I'm like, well, I really like that shade. And it's now more compact and I can take it with me and it's so much easier to use. I was like coming up with every single blinking excuse for me to like have an excuse to buy this thing, which that's when you know you've hit sort of a rock bottom with makeup. I mean, and consumerism on a whole, where you're trying to make up a reason and an excuse for you to buy this thing that is literally something that you already own, but because it's presented in a different format that makes it new and shiny and different, even though it's the exact same freaking thing you have. I was honestly kind of disgusted with myself. I saw it and I was like, oh, that's cute, I'd like to buy it. And I was like, dude, you got it. You got it. Probably 2 times over. I actually have both of the Natasha Denona $80 overpriced palette. So you've got it in like 3 things. You don't need it. That's probably one of the more shameful ones, and it shows just kind of how much I'm sometimes influenced by those things that just like, you know, oh look, it's so pretty. It's gonna be a nice little single. Oh, look at those highlighters. Oh, look at the whatever. You know, it's a good testament to where I am now, but at the moment I was like, you disgust me. Because there was that small part of myself that was like, it'll be so cute in my collection and I'll pull it out and use it all the time. Just use the ones that you like, you know, already have that you don't use. I need you to stop it with this nonsense. But we didn't buy it, and that's why we're here, and I'm definitely a better person for it. Because had I bought it, we all know that shizz would have shown up in like products I shouldn't have bought. Then something that isn't as stupid, but it's something that's like kind of frivolous. It's that Natasha Denona, she did an extension to her Love collection for Valentine's Day, and there was that ever so beautiful duo with that beautiful pinky shimmy shiny highlighter and that beautiful hot pink looking blush. Y'all know that shizz was up my alley, and I love her blush duos, and this one looks so nice, and it had little heart imprints on the powder. I wanted it. But sort of in the same vein as the Natasha Denona highlighter and the ABH highlighter we discussed in the beginning, this was one of those things that just, yes, it would have been nice to have. It would have given me a little bit of joy in using it and adding it to my collection. But it really is one of those things that at this point in my channel, I cannot afford to purchase. Like, y'all, 2021 is gonna be like bare bones, bare minimum of makeup purchasing. I just don't have it to be throwing it away on a single blush, on a single whatever. You know, should I get like happy whatever money? Sure. But if I'm spending money on makeup, it better benefit my channel significantly. And yeah, I could show it in like a hits and misses or whatever, but once again, it was a limited edition job. I'm sure I could dupe out those colors, and I really don't need to be spending $38 on a blush and highlighter duo when I have like 11 of her blush duos. I think I'm good. All right, now we're gonna talk about one of those things that I couldn't buy because of the whole matter of cruelty-free, which I try my hardest to adhere to. A brand that I would love. I would be so happy if MAC Cosmetics decided they wanted to be cruelty-free. Do you have any idea how excited and happy I would be to try at least one of their highlighters? I have grown up all my life in this little YouTube beauty community hearing about how amazing MAC highlighters are. Soft and gentle. You are not a highlighter person if you don't have soft and gentle. They're like skin finishes, and then they did those like super like duo whatever something. Those like really intense molten ones they did that are really good. They did blushes and they did highlighters. You know, I would have a ball. And the one that makes me the most bitter, the most saddest, the MAC X Pony MUA collection. Specifically, those beautiful, gorgeous, astrologically inspired, dreamy highlighters. I remember anti-hauling this when it came out and feeling all sorts of ways. I was like, it's my aesthetic. It's me. It's everything I could possibly want in this sort of collaboration. I was jonesing and I was itching real hard for these. They were so, the colors were these beautiful, like pearlescent duochrome, and then you had the astrological symbolism imprinted right onto the highlight. It was a mood, an aesthetic. It was a whole thing. And I wanted it. I wanted it badly. I can't remember when, how long after it was released. It was still when it was still on the site. And I remember I went in and I was like, that's it. Screw it. I'm going to buy it. I will be the first to admit it. I was going to break my whatevers because I wanted them that bad. And I went on the site and it was all like, just gone. It was just they had the whole like cute little demo image and it was like, click here to buy the collection. The collection had like one lipstick left. And I'm like, it's probably a good thing, stings a little bit, but it's probably a good thing that they weren't there. But let me tell you, the desire, the lust, the yearning, burning I had for these is even more than those same feelings I had for the Jeffree Star Extreme Frosts. Like, yeah, my whatever was like all big on whatever those, but these, the aesthetic, my mood, it was everything to me. And had it been done by any other cruelty-free brand, I would have lost my friggin' mind. No idea about the quality. I actually remember seeing it and immediately thinking about Lacey from Spooky Lips and Fat Hips, and I was like, that's my girl Shizz. And I really wanted it too. But we didn't, which in the case of all of this is, yeah, it's better that we didn't, but it still stings a little bit because that one was just so perfect. All right, let's talk about another product that I think I've trashed on. This may have been a release that happened sort of in an interim of something, like I'd already done an anti-haul, and maybe by the time I was going to talk about it, it wasn't going to be relevant anymore, even though that typically doesn't, I pre-film, so the relevancy of products that I talk about in these videos is definitely subject to change. But good old-fashioned Colourpop, they were like, all right, 2020, it's been pretty strong, been going pretty good. We have learned that if we want to make bank, we need to bank on intellectual property and licensed products. So, sort of in the aftermath of Sailor Moon, in the aftermath of Hocus Pocus, of Hello Kitty, they were like, all right, let's do Animal Crossing because the masses love Animal Crossing. I despise this on so many levels. Not that it's Animal Crossing. You all know how I feel about Colourpop and them basically regurgitating a licensed product giant release every other month. That's my issue with this. Not that it's Animal Crossing. Was it necessarily the best thought out? I saw a couple people being like, let's take what they've done and actually make it better. And even though what they came up was better, that didn't stop the collection from being sold out on the first go. And it isn't the whole collection that I want. I feel like 2021, I'm not going to be buying whole collections unless it's like the end all be all holy grail collaboration collection. I don't need 4 little pan eyeshadow palettes, but what I really wanted to get my sad, pathetic Animal Crossing loving hands on were those 2 blushes. Y'all know there is little more that I love in this life than collecting single highlighters and single blushes. Y'all know that I have come to love the Colourpop blush formula, especially when they do collaborations. For some reason, those blushes are formulated beautifully. I've got the Mulan, I've got the Sailor Moon ones, got a couple different blushes y'all have sent me that have been absolutely amazing. When it comes to these massive collections, what I've kind of figured that I could do, potentially what I would want to do, is not buy the whole thing, buy just a piece of it. Just have a little bit of Animal Crossing and not the whole shebang bang just because it's Animal Crossing and I'm not going to use all of it. But y'all know also that if there is anything that I do not need, we've said this already, is single blushes. As pretty as they are, as cute as they look, I couldn't have bought them anyway, even if I wanted to. I actually went, I can't remember what day it was, but I went on and I was like, oh, Animal Crossing, and it's all gone. Every last little bit of it. When it comes to these ColourPop intellectual property releases, it's like Game of Thrones up in there. Like, people are throwing down to get this shiz. And then they go online and sell it for 2 to 3 to 4 times what it was sold for, but you know, a video on that later. But I did really kind of just want to get my hands. If y'all ever want to buy me a birthday present in 2021, just buy me a random freaking blush and I will think you are the most amazing person on the planet. It doesn't even have to be a fancy blush. Any of the things y'all have sent me, no matter how much it costs, I've been like, this is the most sacred thing I own. I have like a whole amount of stuff that I've received from y'all that I'm like, I could never declutter this. It's so significant to me. But probably a better thing that I ended up not buying them. You know, like I said, I have so many blushes. So many blushes. And if there's anything that my Project Pan has taught me, it's that it takes a long time to use something up. So I'm just gonna hold on to myself, take a deep breath, and remind myself that I'm a better person for not having purchased these things. All right, and that is what I have for this installment of Makeup I Wanted But Didn't Buy. I will continue to do these so long as pertinent items show up, because I don't want to just be like, oh, I wanted that and I wanted that. I want it to be things that I want to talk about, you know, not just sitting here and hashing out every little thing that I would potentially want but didn't buy, because there's a lot of that going around. I would love to hear what y'all have to say about these particular products, as well as something that you wanted but didn't buy for one reason or another. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!